All right, everyone. Hello and welcome back. Um, Today I'm going to be talking about working with photographers, what that entails, some things to expect, etc. And I just wanted to give a little bit of a disclaimer going into this specific presentation and also future presentations as well. But a lot of times I think you guys know me and view me as your photographer, which is great. But sometimes I do have to step into a more agency side of opinions, advice, etc., for the sake of you and your career path and your safety sometimes. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. So just know that I will need to step into that role a little bit more, which typically comes with a little bit more opinion on things and advice. So you guys will be seeing that there is one slide in particular in which I will talk about some local photographers and explain why I think you should or should not work with them. And I just wanted you guys to know that that's coming purely from an agency side, as an agent and working towards that for me and not as a photographer. Because as a photographer, the only thing I can really say is about my competition or something like that, which if you know me, I really don't care about that kind of stuff, but it's important for me to address that working in collaborations with other people. So I just wanted you guys to know that, see that side of me, and expect a little bit different opinions than I normally would put out there. So there's that. Okay, so let's get into this. First things first, let's talk about photographers. I think that you'll be able to best work with a photographer if you know about them, how they make their money, what their career path looks like, what their goals may be, etc. And you can best work with photographers if you know how to work with them and what they're all about. So first of all, let's talk about hobby photographers versus full-time photographers. So hobby photographers are people, and most photographers are photographers because they're passionate. However, hobby photographers may not be motivated by money. They may not make enough money to go full-time, or they may not be as passionate into making it a full-time business. They can also have other factors like having a normal job, having a family, going to school, anything like that. And then full-time photographers are making a career, are making a living out of photography. So what it comes down to is also intent with their business and with their career and what that looks like for them. So full-time photographers need to keep that income going. They don't want to have long periods of time where they don't have paid shoots, and they may have busier schedules with less availability as well versus hobby photographers. They also might be less willing to do things on a more collaboration basis because they need something that serves them and serves their business. Let's talk about typical packages that photographers offer. So most photographers, at least in full-time photography, offer anything from a mini session up to like a premium session. And things that play into the difference are, number one, the time, the amount of this session. So is it a 30-minute session? Is it an hour session? Is it a 2-hour session? Is there one location? Is there 2 locations? Is there 4 locations? Are there several outfits, one outfit? Things like that. Are there multiple people involved? Anything like that. And then the last thing that has to do with packages is how many edits are you getting back? So for full-time photographers, it'll be based on the package. And that can be anywhere, depending on the photographer, from 5 pictures to 50 pictures. So the average full-time photographer in their most popular session will probably deliver 20 to 30 edits. Some photographers are different. Some, you know, as me as a photographer, I personally, and I do this in paid sessions, is they pay for the session, which includes a certain amount of downloads. I edit the full album, except for repeats, blurry, looking like you're sneezing, anything like that. And they get to choose their downloads. That's not common. So if you've only worked with me as a photographer, just make sure you are aware that that is not typical, and that most photographers don't do that. So most photographers will do a set number of edits that they choose which ones they're going to edit. And then hobby photographers, it's very similar to full-time in this, where they'll give you a set number of images. Now, working with models, not doing paid sessions or doing a paid session with a model, that might be different as well. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but sometimes they don't have a set amount of edits. They'll just do the session and edit what they think looks good. And it's not really a set number. You might work with them one time and they give you 7 pictures, and then they might work with you another time and they give you 15. But typically it's anywhere between 5 and 50 because editing does take a lot of time. Okay, let's talk about career goals of photographers. So some photographers' career goal is to make their business full-time, be able to support themselves, support their family, pay their bills, make money, and grow their business that way. Some career goals, and this is a really popular career goal right now, is to become a successful business owner and then also mentor other photographers. There's not many photographers who want to take on models and mentor models. However, there are some. And then other career goals may be to be in a magazine, to get work published, to get paid by a brand or work with brands. Other career goals are to work up into and then get into a different photography business. Like this isn't the best example, but it's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. I don't know many photographers who want to be like a yearbook photographer, but they might want to build a portfolio to be able to get into another business, if that makes sense, a photography business that's already established, like yearbook photos or something like that. And then some people just want to make art, create for themselves or for others, anything like that. And then there's also the social media route. So they want to create maybe kind of like an influencer in some sense, build a social media following, build a YouTube channel, things like that. Those are typically the most popular routes that people want to go. And then working with models. So not every photographer works with models, and not every photographer works with models on a collaboration basis. And just so you guys know, if you weren't a part of the modeling workshop, in the modeling world and in professional photography world, we call collaborations test shoots or trade for print. So if you hear me refer to those things, it's basically another word for a collaboration, but it's more agency based, using that. If you ever get signed to a big agency, they're going to call it a test shoot. And basically what that is a free shoot, a trade that you do with a photographer. You guys have a theme or concept that you're working with for portfolio building purposes. So not every photographer works with models. Some photographers do work with models, but they have to pay for a session. And you can tell if they work with models by what they post. If they're posting only family stuff, then probably don't work with models. You can always ask, things like that. You'll kind of get the feel of, from their portfolio, what they want to pursue. If that makes sense. Okay, now that you guys know a little bit about photographers, let's talk about the mindset of photographers. And let me just make sure that my thing, okay, isn't covering the text for you guys. Okay, So let's talk about mindset of photographers. And I think this is something that isn't discussed very often, but I think it's a really, really important thing to think about before even working with another photographer. And so there's 4 things I think are really important when it comes to mindset. Collaboration is the first one. Is this photographer open to an actual collaboration, equal parts of work? Or do they expect you to show up and do all the work and then they edit the images, you know? Or how willing are they to let you come up with an idea or let you bring an idea to the table or have your input, etc.? Do they want it just to be their photo shoot that you're starring in? Does that make sense? So think about the mindset of collaboration, what that all entails, what really is a trade to you, and how do they execute that in their photo shoots. Okay, payment. Something that you guys all should know is that a lot of photographers, if you're not doing a test shoot or collaboration, will ask you to pay for their services. So I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is the kind of guide I use in who should get paid, okay? If a model and a photographer are working to build their portfolio together and come up with a concept together or agree on a concept together that will equally help each other, right? That should be free. That's a trade. If a photographer has a shoot and they need a specific look or they want a specific model, they should pay the model. If the model has a specific look or specific shoot or specific photographer in mind that they want for this shoot, they should pay the photographer. If a brand is hiring a photographer to execute this, then the photographer should get paid and the model should get paid. If the brand is hiring a model to execute something, the brand should pay the model and the model should pay the photographer. I think that's the most equal thing, because it does get a little bit, there are some gray areas. So try to remember that reference when you're thinking about payment. And also decide now if you would be open to paying photographers for their time and professionalism, their editing work, etc. Also decide what your budget is. That's up to you to decide. I'm not going to speak on that as a photographer. I have to speak on that as an agent, which is if you want a certain thing for your portfolio, if you want certain aspects to your portfolio, you might have to pay for that, but it's not necessary. Okay, possessiveness. This is something that I think is very, very important and unfortunately really common. There's a lot of chit chat behind me. Okay, possessiveness. So here's the thing about possessiveness, and this is where I tend to get mama bear and tend to really jump into that agency role. So unless you're signed with an agent or an agency, a photographer does not own you. And I want you guys to all know that. As a model, it is your job to model. And you can't do that unless you're working with photographers, right? You can't expand your portfolio if you're not expanding your career. Does that make sense? And unfortunately, I've seen this a lot in some past experiences that I've had with models and other photographers. Unless you're signed to someone who's actively helping your career, they do not own you. They don't get to have a say, and they shouldn't have a say in what you do. So, and I'll get this into a little bit more as well with a specific example, but if a photographer wants to sign you and do a set number of photo shoots, that's totally fine. But that has nothing to do with who else you work with and what else you do with your career, okay? Unless that person is actively an agent, an agency, or pursuing that, such in my case, okay? So I'll get into that a little bit more, but keep that in mind that sometimes that there are predators in this industry, and possessiveness is a huge red flag. Okay. And then reputation. What is their reputation like? How good is their work? What do other models or clients say about working with them, etc. And pay attention to that, because that is the best advice that you can get, is from someone that's already worked with them. Okay. I'm babbling a lot. So this is where I'm going to get into a little bit more harsher opinions as an agent, and nothing more than that. So these are some recommended photographers that I have on my list from past experiences, not only working with them behind the scenes, past experiences from models, and also please don't think that anyone in the Schwartz Models group or list is connected in particular with any of these photographers. All of this list that I put together, this small list, is all coming from many experiences since I've been working here, okay? And the quality of their work. So I'll go down through a list, and I hope to expand this list into the full four corners. I'm still working on that. And if you have a specific area you would like me to do some research for you or with you, just let me know and we can work on that together. So I can't talk. Sue from Shoe, but I can't say this. Sue from Sue Shutterbug. She has been recommended by previous models. What they've told me is that she's easy to work with. She delivers edits in a timely fashion, and that she has a really creative process, and she has creative ideas, unique ideas. So I would recommend her, or reaching out to her. I will say, based on the quality of her work, I personally wouldn't recommend doing a low light photo shoot with her, as it seems like she's working with a older camera, which is totally fine. I worked with an older camera for 10 years personally as a photographer. But that can decrease the quality of your images, which is not good for a portfolio. And if you were to print that off, there would be a lot of noise, a lot of grain in those images. So just, I would recommend doing something in natural light or with studio lights. Okay. Ray from Our Captain. I've gotten, people have had great experiences with him. Again, easy to work with. He knows what he's doing. He has good editing style. I'm not sure about Sue of how many edits she gives, but I know Ray will give like anywhere from 7 to 20, I think, is kind of what I've seen or what I've heard from other models who have worked with him. And the only thing I will say about him is that his work can sometimes be more suggestive, and I can tell that he's interested in doing boudoir, things like that. So if you're underage or you're not wanting to be associated with that, that's something to take into consideration. And the other thing I have seen from past experience is that I had a model who had worked with him several times, and she had a family emergency or something, and she ended up having to reschedule the morning of their shoot, which was in the afternoon. And he told her that he didn't want to work with her anymore because of that. And that was difficult for him to just have an opening like that when he could have booked it with something else. So that's something to take into consideration. People have various guidelines on how they feel about rescheduling or canceling shoots and stuff like that. So just obviously, as an agent, just try your best to be professional in the best way that you can. But also, I think as a human, remember that it is okay to reschedule and it is okay for things to come up. Harley, she's newer, she's in Durango. I have had models work with her and gotten feedback from her, and I've also talked to her several times. And the only advice that I was given that was semi-negative, I guess you could call it, was that she didn't have a lot of poses. And so just make sure if you work with her, just have some poses in mind. And then No from No Lozano, he is based, I think, in Farmington. His work is amazing. He was the professor for photography at the college there. So he has access to a lot of great equipment, beautiful equipment, things like that. The only downside that I have heard and have had previous experience with is that he came off, and I don't mean this in a personal way. Like I said, this is just something that I have to inform you guys as an agent, so that you're best equipped to work with other people, is that I had some models who worked with him that said that he came off a little bit arrogant, and that really turned them off when they were shooting with him. And then he kind of took that arrogance and started putting a model down about her posing and stuff like that. Instead of helping her, instead of guiding her, instead of reinforcing the things that she was doing right, she left the shoot with great images, but feeling bad about herself. So I just want you guys to know that that was one person that I had that experience, or that had that experience. So it might be different. It might have been just a one-time thing, but I think it is important to share because that person is a signed model with lots of experience. So, and then the one person that I would not recommend, and I hate to do this like publicly with you guys, is Walt from Macaulay Imagery. And I'll tell you why. So, unfortunately, he has a lot of possession issues with photography or with models. I've had over 15 people that I've worked with give the same exact story without me asking. So that's concerning to me. And without me prompting them to say anything, they gave me the exact same story, that they were possessive, that he signed them. And then when they worked with other people, and when they signed with him, it wasn't as an agency. It was, we're going to do a set number of shoots together. Okay. A job, right? That's not paid, but something like that. And they got nasty messages. They've got messages with curse words in it, things like that. They've also had bad experiences with the finished images that they got. So they only got, say they shot for 2 hours, they only got 2 images, things like that. Or I had several models tell me that they did shoots and they never got images, but they were posting on social media. And then the last thing that I've noticed and other people have noticed, I've heard from past experiences, that he can be a little bit pressuring when it comes to showing skin, being suggestive. And I've seen this just looking at his page, unfortunately, with underage girls pulling down their shirt, positioning in sitting poses where you could be looking up the skirt, things like that. And I just really do not recommend this photographer to anybody, even if you feel like you have no other photographers to work with, because it's going to potentially be a predatory situation. So, and again, no hate to, that person, but as a agent, I have to keep you guys safe, and I have to deliver the information that's been shared with me by over 15 models, that they were in a bad situation, a predatory situation. Some people almost quit their modeling dreams over working with this person, etc. So take that with what you will, and just remember to trust your gut instinct on that. Okay, let's talk about reaching out. Hopefully I haven't been talking for too long already because it feels like I have, but let's talk about reaching out. So first of all, you want to do some research. Does it look like they collaborate with models? Do you like their editing and shooting style? Would you feel comfortable shooting with them? If you don't know if you feel comfortable shooting with them, you need to ask previous clients or models for their experience, and make sure you ask previous and current, because one, current clients or models are going to speak really highly if they're currently working with them, and you might get a different answer from previous models, but current models can also speak to their current quality of images and things like that. Contact them. So I'm going to go over a DM guide on the next slide, but you can follow that script. Be respectful and courteous when asking any creative for anything. Remember, they might ask to have you pay, and you can be open to that even if you're not ready to pay for that. You can still ask and be respectful of their profession, even if you're not necessarily able to financially pay. Because you can always say, okay, now that I know your rates, I need to save up some money, or I need to wait till I'm in a better financial situation, whatever it is, and I will definitely be working with you in the future, just like that. Make sure you have some photo shoot concepts to pitch. If they ask, you can use Pinterest for that, and make sure you have some kind of idea for location, styling, hair and makeup. Now, expectations, you can always ask the photographer, hey, can you stop talking? They go. You can always ask the photographer what's expected of you as a model, and be clear about your expectations with the photographer as well. So just make sure there's clear communication going on. You can always sign a contract, even if you make your own. And if you would like resources on that, I can share my contract with you. You just have to message me, and I can send that to you. And then you need to outline any boundaries or any trades. So if you're working with someone who typically has suggestive images, make sure you outline your boundary and like, oh, I don't want this to look suggestive, or I'm only comfortable doing these things or whatever. Also outline this trade is X, Y, and Z, and I expect this many images and things like that. Okay, now let's talk about the DM script. Oh, I might have been covering up my face. Hopefully I wasn't covering up anything, but I wasn't paying attention to that. Okay, I'm just going to read through this really quick, and you'll get a copy of this. I forgot I couldn't see my video until just now when I moved it, and I forgot I had my RuPaul's Drag Race background on. Anyways, okay, so you can follow this script or do something like this, but I'm just going to read it, and there's some key points that I want you to hear. So, and I'm going to fill in the blanks, okay? Hi there, my name is Amber, and I'm a signed model with SCHWARTZ Models based in Cortez. I love your work and was wondering if you collab with models or are up for any test shoots or trade for print. I'm interested in editorial modeling and think that we could work well together. I have a few ideas for shoots if you would like to see them, and I would love to hear any ideas you might have as well. Please let me know of any rates you may have if you are not interested in a collab or test shoot. My typical availability is weekends after 2 p.m. If you have certain requirements for to shoot or collab with a model, please let me know. I would also be happy to email if that suits you better. I have attached a few recent images from my last shoot, and thank you for your time and consideration. I look forward to hearing from you. So that's a way that you can reach out to people. If you want, since I'm giving you guys all of this, you can also obviously personalize it a little bit, change the wording up. So one photographer doesn't get like 5 of you guys sending this script, but feel free to personalize it. But the main points are: introduce yourself, introduce what you're interested in, introduce, say that you have ideas, let them know your typical availability, be open to any rates that they might share with you. So just as a courtesy, to be professional, let them know that you look forward to hearing from them and thank them for their time. Those are the best or the key ingredients to reaching out. Okay, and then this is our last slide on this. I'm trying to like pray that I'm not talking too much because I felt like I was just talking for a really long time. Okay, so these are the last few tips that I want to bring to you about working with photographers. Okay, create a radius that you're willing to travel to. So if you're willing to travel to, say, Grand Junction, search Grand Junction photographers in Instagram and research their work. You can do this for almost any city. You can even do Colorado photographers, anything like that. You can look on hashtags. You can also just go to the search bar and type that in. Make sure you're protected. So don't be afraid to have a signed agreement related to location, payments, and how many edits. You can also ask the photographer if they're going to make you sign something and ask them to send it before the shoot so you can read it over. You can always send it to me. Just make sure you're protected in that way. Bring a buddy. So don't ever meet up with a stranger alone. I think we all know this one. You can always ask me to attend if you don't have a buddy, and we can schedule something out. I'll be happy to go on any shoot you don't have someone to go with, or you just want feedback. You want me to critique the shoot, anything like that. I'm more than happy to do. If you have a bad feeling, listen to it. Okay. There are predators in this industry. Please, please, please listen to your gut feeling. Protect yourself at any cost. You can always get a second opinion from your friend, family member, me, anything like that. And share your experience. So if you work with a photographer, let me know. Let me know how it went. Let me know the pros and cons of working that photographer if you want to, or you can even share it in the group chat. It's really helpful to everyone to hear about your experience with a certain photographer so they can be best equipped to work with them or not work with them. And remember that this is all business. It's nothing personal. And don't be afraid to say, hey, this photographer wasn't that great. I really like the images, but X, Y, and Z. Don't be afraid to hurt someone's feelings or be honest, because that's how we all grow and learn. Okay. So if you have any more questions about reaching out to photographers, if you want some help one-on-one, send me a message, and I hope that this helped you in some way. Okay. Okay. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.